Hey, friend, real quick before we start today's episode. So, if you are someone who has always wanted to start a fashion brand, or maybe you've already started, but you just want it to get off the ground, and you are looking to do so in a way that's meaningful, I want to invite you to a special workshop I'm hosting that teaches you how to start a fashion brand with purpose and profit in mind. I'm going to be sharing the three foundational must haves to build a business that not only makes impact, but also makes you money. So make sure to reserve your seat today at makegoodfashion.com/workshop. Again, that's makegoodfashion.com/workshop. You're not going to want to miss this, and it's absolutely free. In today's episode, I get to chat with Lottie Woods of Lottie Woods Designs. Lottie is a freelance fashion designer and sustainable design consultant with over 10 years of experience. She got her start in the industry designing for well-known brands like Topshop, Miss Selfridges, and Primark, to name a few. In 2018, she took the leap to start her own business as a freelance designer, helping fashion brands bring their designs to life. Lottie has a passion for helping designers understand how to create quality garments that are fit for purpose and made to last. In our interview, Lottie and I discuss how you can bring your designs to life without any design experience at all, how to incorporate sustainability into your design process, and how to design a winning product that will keep your customers coming back for more. So, without further ado, here's my conversation with Lottie Woods. Hi, Lottie. Thank you so much for being on the podcast today. I'm so excited to have you.
Thanks so much for having me.
Yes. Okay, Lottie. So I want to get right into it because I want the audience to get to know you a little bit more. So if you can just tell us about how you landed in design, how you found yourself here, and just give us a little bit more about your background.
Yeah, so I am like a freelance fashion design consultant and I work with independent brands and startup companies mostly. Before that, I was working in the fashion industry for 8 years. That was working, in the more traditional fashion industry that's, definitely like the fast fashion side of things, which was really amazing. I learned so much while I was doing that. But, if we could go into that later, but I've obviously, you know, had a lot of questions about the fashion industry. But the way I got into that was because I've always just been like an extremely creative person. I did like art and textiles at school and I wasn't really sure what to do with it. So I went to university to do fashion design. I went to university, it was very focused more on the commercial design rather than extremely conceptual design.
Mm.
And I kind of did that purposely because I'm very passionate about designing clothes for people who, I know they're going to wear them and it's not something just for like a one off occasion. So I've always been very, very passionate about designing for more everyday people. So yeah, that's what I did. And I graduated from a university and I got my first job actually straight out of university and moved to London and it just, yeah, it kind of went from there really. And my first job was working as in a denim supplier. And then my second job, I moved more into like wovens, which is like, anything like tops, bottoms, skirts, dresses, anything that's made from like woven fabric, not stretched fabric. And then my third job was a bit of everything as what you call like a multi-product designer.
Mhm.
And a lot of people say, it's good to niche and it's good to work on a particular product. But because I started on denim, I didn't really want to just by chance, my first ever job be like, that's it, I'm niching forever, because I really wanted
Yes.
to learn different disciplines. And I'm really glad I did because actually by the time I finished working in the as a full time designer in London and started thinking about what I want to do next, it stood me in such good stead having that background because now when I work with clients, I can turn my hand to so many different things. And I've had like that really good design experience. So I can approach it from a way that I feel really confident that I can deliver and I don't feel worried about, I would definitely tell a client if there was a particular, if there was something I wasn't comfortable with. I tend not to do like underwear, anything like overly technical with underwear or things like that because I don't have a lot of experience in that. So yeah, like I have quite a broad experience And it makes freelancing very, very interesting because I get so many different varied briefs and things.
So you spoke about how you worked in fast fashion before, and now you're so niched into purpose-driven brands, and that's kind of why I connected with your work so much because that's something that is so important to us here. But I'm curious how you took the leap from, went from designing for fast fashion brands and then in your own freelancing business, catering to purpose-driven brands. So how did you get there?
I like the story of how I came to this because I didn't come to it actually it wasn't like, I'm going to leave my job and then I'm going to start my own business. It didn't really go like that because by the time I left my full-time job, you know, I left quite quickly in a way because things went really quite toxic in my last job.
Mhm.
And I had an opportunity to step away and I just thought I have to do it for the sake of my sanity.
Yeah.
And at that point, I actually had a blog that I used to do. It was all about like slow fashion and like I tried to connect with people as much as possible by doing that because at work I was very aware that I wasn't doing fulfilled. It was very quantity over quality production style and so I really needed to do something for myself. And this was maybe like 7 years ago. So it's still, it was when the conversations were still quite new. And so through that, I wanted to do a little bit of traveling as I'd never done that before.
Mm.
So I went to India with my partner and we saw all this amazing like artisanal products. We did a lot of filming there for someone who had a slow fashion brand. She wanted like my partner's videographer. So we were doing like filming there, saw all of that. We went to like Bali for a little while and we were doing like beach cleans. I was really like just throwing myself into like this space of how can I find more purpose for myself? And then the last place we went was Cambodia, and it was there that I really loved it there, and it felt like you could do a lot in Cambodia because it's less developed in a way. And so I met some really interesting people in Cambodia through Fashion Revolution. They were like heading up Fashion Revolution Cambodia. And it turned out one of the women who was running it, she needed someone to work. She was working in a very small garment manufacturer. And we got talking and she was like, actually, there might be a job for you working with us. So we were staying in Siem Reap and we went all the way down to Phnom Penh to meet them, had like talks with them. And so I ended up moving there permanently and I was there for like a year.
Wow.
And so with them, I basically did what I do now. They needed someone to liaise with clients and do their tech packs for them. And some clients they had an idea, but they needed more help. And so doing the design development. So that's how I got into doing this. And it was through doing it with them that then they said, you could probably do this with other people as well. I was like, oh yeah.
Yeah.
And I did, and I started working with other people in Cambodia, and then to that wasn't enough for me to live and earn enough money to live there.
Mm.
So I also was teaching. They got me a job at a local college teaching fashion design, which was crazy. I
That's
was doing like
amazing.
honestly, like I'm not qualified, but they don't have like a lot of creative teachers in Cambodia. So they respect like experience. So they just like trusted that I could do it. And I was teaching like pan cutting and
Oh my
sewing and
gosh.
honestly things that I shouldn't have been teaching to be honest. Because like I can do those things, but like,
Yeah.
they're not my specialties, design and tech packs and all of that is my specialty. So
Yeah.
but it was an amazing experience. And it turned out like we moved back from Cambodia at the right time because I think we moved back in 2000 and the end of 2019. And so I set up like my website and officially launched my services.
Wow,
So
that's so
yeah.
amazing. I had no idea that you lived in Cambodia. That's insane.
Yeah. And so I think it was really good for me because in a way, like it brought me back to what I'm good at. Because at one point I was like, do I even still want to continue working in fashion?
Mm.
And I was sad at the idea of not because I have all these skills. and I would have turned my back on them in a way. And so it was really good to learn to like, I feel like Cambodia really helped me a lot, you know?
Yeah. I think that's always the challenge with designers and people who work in the industry is, we want to do it in a way that feels meaningful and purposeful. And a lot of times there's not those opportunities, especially here in the States and where you are. And, you know, fast fashion kind of dominates. And so it's so amazing that you were able to get that experience and do some important work that you really care about and really fueled you. So I love that. Now, question for you. Why did you decide to take a supporting role for a brand? So support other brands instead of starting your own brand? I'm curious.
It's a really good question. Again, you've got such good, they're all good questions. Yeah, like it's really interesting, because when I was at uni, I've always been person, my grandma was like, oh, but one day you'll be famous. I was like, no, I've never watched that. I always wanted to just be the person in the background doing the designs. And then, I never felt like I needed to really be the big, name designer or anything. And yeah, like so and obviously when you work in the fast fashion side of things, you are so unbelievably like behind the scenes, and so you just get very used to that, and you get into like a habit of, in a way, like understanding what people need, making it happen. And so yeah, like it's just it's not the thought of starting my own brand isn't something to be honest, well, it's it's something I think about more now. But before I just really always wanted to just design. I didn't have to, I never felt like I needed to have my name to anything. And I
Yeah.
really enjoy like helping people. I really enjoy like it's like creative problem solving, It's not necessarily a problem, but if someone comes to you and they say, ah, this is my idea. I love like my job is like really getting to the core of what it is they're doing, and figuring out how we can do the best job possible and get the best product at the end. And it is like you just, yeah, it just becomes like a way of thinking that I've always done. So I really enjoy that. And I think it gives me a lot of joy, like seeing people, you know, doing those things. And everyone I've worked with has such good ideas, that they're like what they would do as a brand isn't necessarily what I would do, but I can get into their headspace and, make it happen. And some people have got very personal reasons why they start their own product. Maybe they've gone through illness and they want to create a product for people who are going through a similar thing to them. Or
Mm,
I've worked with quite a lot of mothers who feel like they've lost their sense of identity
mm.
after childbirth, and they want to create products for other women who might feel the same. Or, it's just, it doesn't have to be that, but some people want to create, really fun, organic kids wear that's made ethically because, they just want to know that the clothes their kids are wearing don't have any harmful chemicals in or haven't been produced by, child labor and things like, everyone
Yeah.
has their own reason for starting something. And I love hearing people's stories as well.
Yeah, I love that so much because I feel like we all need a role, right? Like if we were all the designers or, starting the brands, like who is in the supporting role helping us bring those visions to life? So I love that you have found your lane and you're like, doing well in it and helping a lot of people do great things and bring great product to market. Uh,
Exactly. And
yeah.
actually, I on that, like, I feel really passionate about playing to like my strength. So the same, even when people say, "Oh, can you help me like connecting to a fabric supplier?" I often refer them to someone who I know that's their strength. I'm
Yes.
very aware, like my my strengths are like design development, like tech packs, teaching you about design and helping you understand it more. And I do consultations with clients also, like helping you understand the next step. So how to get like good samples, how to work with factories. But if there's someone else who I can refer someone to who I know will do a really good job, I prefer to just pass the work to them because at the end of the day, like my passion is making sure, like I said, that the end outcome is the best. I'm not going to sit here and be like, I know everything, and there's definitely, I work with print designers who are really, if a client wants to incorporate print into the design, I like bring them in because, yeah, I think I always want to be completely honest with a client of my own limitation. So if there's someone who can do it better, let's get them in.
And that's so important. I love the honesty because no one can do everything well. And if anyone tells you that, then they're lying to you because everyone does have a strength. And so I love that. And that segues me into the next topic I want to talk about because, I work with a lot of designers and I often hear this question from people who want to start brands and they're like, I want to start a brand. I have no design experience. Can I still start? And I feel like there's this myth that you're not able to be a designer. I mean, it's in the name, but still, you're not able to be a designer if you have no design experience. So
Mm,
I'm wondering if you can demystify that for us. And is that
yeah.
true? Like, do you need design experience to be a designer?
It's really interesting because when I work with clients, sometimes they'll say I've done a sketch, and they're like, "I'm so embarrassed to send it to you." Like, and I'm like, "No, please send it," because at the end of the day, I'm really good at doing technical designs because, I mean, I've been doing it for 12 years, and that doesn't even include like university and then, doing it in A levels and GCSEs, which is like, I'm not sure if like the qualification was like in America, like, but that's like, I just, I've basically been doing it for like, you know, a ridiculous, like 16, like 17 years. I've been practicing that. Yeah. So it would be crazy for you to, for someone else to be like, well, I can't start my own brand. I have this really passion, like this vision and passion to start because I'm not as good at, I can't put a technical sketch together because trust me, when I started my job, like I could barely do it either. So it's because I do it every single day. Every single day I'm drawing technical sketches and designs and I'm doing tech practice. So for me it's second, it literally is like this, like second nature to me at this point. And I think, because then if you have that thought process, oh, well, I need to be able to sketch it up. Then you go, oh, well, then I need to do the pattern cutting as well. Oh, and then I need to like cut it all out. Oh, I need to learn to sew. And now I need to like be an expert in marketing. You're like, no, again, exactly like what we just before. Everyone starting their own company, their own business will have their own strength. I think it's really important that that you as a new brand owner plays to your own strength. And
Yeah.
then, you bring people in who can help you because if you wanted to do everything yourself, it would take probably like, a decade to launch a brand.
Yeah.
And the designs you had in mind would be outdated. You just have to start again.
Exactly. That's so funny. I think it's also a mindset shift because definitely, I started my own brand before. And when I started, the curriculum that I had in my college was like we had a brief overview of design, but it wasn't a design specific major, right? So I'm like, okay, I can do the design myself and a whole bunch of other things. And yes, it took me forever to get things down. It's not my specialty. So what happens is like you're trying to save money, you're trying to do all the things yourself. And you end up making really costly mistakes where it was like, "Oh, I could have spent that
Yeah,
money hiring someone who is skilled in this area, had things done, my tech pack's perfect, product coming out great off that." But then what happens is like, "Oh, now my armholes are too small and I have to there's so much waste because I can't use this product or sell this product." And so I think people the mindset
absolutely.
of, like, trying to cut corners and save money and do everything yourself and trying to articulate your designs, it seems like a smart decision in the beginning, but it ends up being really costly and can really be fatal to your
Mm.
business if it's not something that is fixed quickly, you know what I mean?
Exactly. And this is something we often say, and it's not something like we want to use as a scare tactic in any kind of way.
Oh,
To like
absolutely.
trick people into working with you. You're like, no,
Yeah.
like you're just like I've had people who have say for instance started as a new brand and don't and work without tech packs, and some factories say, oh, we can do it. And often what happens is they create like 3 rounds of samples and it's still not how you really wanted it. But that's because like factories aren't designers. They kind of just want to just make clothes. But the thing to do is really like if you give them a really detailed tech pack, they can take it. The concept is they should be able to look at it completely, understand what you want to make, then make it. And with a really detailed tech pack, your first sample will probably be like your third sample, that you try and done without. And I've never had it ever where someone's come back and be like, the first sample come out really bad. That just
Yeah.
doesn't happen because you've given them all the information. And then if for some reason it is wrong, you can go, well, I've given you this information, you've not followed it. So can you please make a second sample? And obviously I don't want to be charged for, any of the mistakes made because I gave you like detail. If you try and do it without and of mistakes, you kind of don't really have a leg to stand on because they go, oh, well, we're just, we tried our best. You didn't give us information. So you start from a really good position of power. One, that you understand your design well because it's been really well mapped out and you can look at it and you can say, oh yeah, I actually get it myself. Then you can, get a good costing from a manufacturer because they know what it is that it involves. So you won't have any crazy surprises when they go, oh, actually it's going to cost more because we didn't realize you needed this. Your first sample will come back, I'd say pretty close to what you want it to be. You always have to prepare for like needing like small tweaks and changes. Yeah, and then the overall process hopefully will be simpler, more enjoyable. The thing that breaks my heart is I have had people come to me and say, "Oh, this samples just aren't turning out right. I think I do need to now get a tech pack." And at that point, they've already spent quite a lot of money. And then yeah, and they're starting from a place of backtracking, and that breaks my heart because I know that's how disheartening that must feel.
Yeah. And for those who don't know what a tech pack is, can you briefly explain like what that is?
Yes. So it's basically like an instruction manual for garments. Imagine like you're working with a factory that might not always speak, the English would be their first language. So it's just good to like know everything down in like as clear detail as possible. It's basically like it can be up to like a 10+ page document sometimes, making sure that everything is covered in one place. It's great to have it all in one place. So like I said, you can give it to the factory, they can look through it. If there's any questions that they have after that, they can ask them. But the goal is to be able to give that to them and then to have like very minimal questions and they understand exactly what it is. It's all in one place. So there's no like, oh, I didn't get that email or, oh, it's on a random thread. It's just this very easy to understand visual document to make the process easier. And it's a very like industry standard thing. Like even in fast fashion, you have tech packs, but they are nowhere near as detailed
Yeah.
because you can't, it's too fast to process. And they just need, you know, as many designs per day as you can physically do. I make sure they're as detailed as possible because the goal is, definitely quality over quantity and make sure that anything that is produced is done as well as possibly can be.
Yeah. That's amazing. And so this is something that you offer with your design, right? So when you do design services, you do the tech pack as well. And then the designer is able to grab that and give it to their factory as like you said, an instruction manual
Yeah.
to
It's
articulate
almost
it.
like a lot of people say it's almost like, when you get like flat pack furniture and you open up the instructions and it tells you how to make it. It's pretty much like that. Yes.
I love that example. That's such a good example. So, for designers who, let's say, they want to work with a freelance designer, or let's say they just don't have design experience and they want to bring their designs to life, and maybe they want to at least get a rough sketch down or something to try to articulate that. What are some tips that you have? Like, where do you even start if you have no background? You can't even draw a stick figure, but like in your head, you have those ideas of the things that you want to
Mm.
create. Like, what are some steps or like tips for designers to kind of articulate that with a freelance designer or to try to get it on paper themselves?
So I call it like the Frankenstein effect. So you say, for instance, like you had one image that you found that you just loved like the shape. You kind of like put that in you could start building like a mood board for yourself. And
Like
maybe,
Pinterest or something, right?
yeah, you can do it on Pinterest or you can do it, you can print it out and stick it down, or, you could do it on any other computer program that you can pull images into. So yeah, you can pull in like this image that you really like of the shape. Then maybe you've got like one, oh, I really like the neckline on that one, actually. I'll pull that one in. And then you're like, actually, I really love the sleeve on this one. And so it is like putting like bringing elements together,
Yeah.
and it's really good to keep it really visual because design is so visual. And if you're working with someone like me, a designer, we're very visual people. So if you say, oh, I kind of want the neckline to be like a V neck and then this, I'm like, have you got a picture to reference that? Because a picture really does speak like 1,000 words in a way. But it removes what I like to do is I try and remove like the ability to misinterpret what someone might want. When I've worked with design with the people at brand owners before, and they're like, how do you know that what you create once I've invested in your services? How do I know that I'll get what I want? And I was like, because I don't just design without I don't just like go for it and go, here you go. That's you get what you're given. I like ask so many questions, like, so even like a designer, they'll show me like they've selected images. I'll then break it down even further, because
Mhm.
it's really important for me to make sure that I am delivering what you want. No one wants to, have that not very nice conversation. Or you haven't, so I do everything I can to avoid that. It works. But yeah. And so for instance, building that like kind of very visual idea, you can definitely have a go at doing a sketch for yourself as well. And then, bringing those ideas together in a bit of a sketch. And it doesn't even have to be amazing, but it can just anything to just help get it out of your head. Because I
Yeah.
think people have a lot of ideas. This is what I've found. And if you don't get it like out in some kind of way, it never feels real. Or you just end up, yeah, just thinking about it too much. So if you, any way you can get onto paper or onto a computer screen and write some notes about it, even, and, this is like a really good start. And and then actually, I have like something on my that I sell. It's called a collection planner,
Mm.
and it's just something I have on my website. And to be honest, like I don't really even promote it, but I should do.
I know, you should. You need to be helping these people out.
But that even goes even it's really good. It asks you loads of it basically asks you those questions for the design to
Mhm.
help you make it really easy to make tangible steps. But it
Mm.
even does things like it asks you like question we're not asking questions, but it says, who's your kind of target customer. And that's something that I find a lot of people starting brands sometimes are very vague. Like they'll say, oh, a rough age and a little like, one sentence, but this will be like, what's their hobbies? What do they like doing in their spare time? What kind of thing is missing for them? Is there a reason why you can solve that problem? Is there, how will your product fill that need that they have? And it's just
Yeah.
really thinking about the product in a really well-rounded way and knowing that yeah, making sure that when you invest in developing it, that you're really confident that it is
Yeah.
yeah,
I
what you
love
want it
that.
to be.
Yeah, I love that question of, like, defining the target customer because I feel like once you can solidly identify who your target customer is, it really, like, informs every decision that you make in your business, including your design, right? Because 'Cause you're designing for that target customer. So it gives you an idea of, like, what is this person's needs? You know what I mean? Like, is it a mom
Yeah,
that needs something for breastfeeding? Is it someone who's on the go and needs pockets and things like that?
yeah,
So I think those are all important things to think about and not only from the perspective of like, okay, what do I like? Like, what do I want to do? Because I think as designers, a lot of times we can step into it very selfishly where it's just like, okay, like I love long coats. So I'm going to make a line of long coats, which I think, yes, you should be tied into your brand and it should be something you love and you're proud of.
mm,
But from a business perspective, you also need to make money. And so it's
Mhm.
important that you are serving and we want to solve a problem, right? So it's important that you're
Exactly.
serving your target customer really well.
Yeah, and the problem doesn't have to be anything really deep, it can just be something like it can be anything, but as long as you've kind of thought about what it is, the purpose of the garment is a really big thing. And that is one thing that I will say fast fashion no with there's one thing fast fashion companies does well is knowing their customer. Like
Mm.
they will talk about their customer as if they're in the room. Like, oh, she does this on a weekend. Like,
Wow.
she will love this kind of, thing. Like they have almost like a name for them and like a picture in their head of they are. And like every decision they make is like based around this, this person. And sometimes it can be really good to even break it down into just one person because thinking as like of a collective customer sometimes can be quite overwhelming.
Yeah.
But if you think of one person, oh, like, even if it's someone who you know, and they're like, this is, yeah, I have a friend who's like my exact target customer. But then you can flesh it out, and you can even think about it as a singular person, and then as a group of people as well.
Right.
That's like quite an easier way to think about it in a way.
Yeah, totally. It's so important. So let me ask you this. When you are working with designers and let's say they're like, okay, I need you to help me bring these designs to life. What does that process look like? What does it look like to work with you? And how do you collaborate with designers to help them bring those designs to life?
So the way I start is normally I was getting them on emails and I send them like a form to fill out, which is a few of these initial questions. So, just like your information, who are you? And then, what kind of thing are you looking to create? So is it like a range of dresses or a range of a swimwear range? And how many pieces? Yeah, who's your customer? And another question is a really good question, like who are your competitors? And these aren't competitors like some people mistake, like big companies as their
Hmm.
competitors. So they'll put like, you know, ASOS. I don't know if you have ASOS in America or.
We do. We use ASOS. Yeah.
Yeah. But they'll say, something of that, like company size. And what it's good to do is think of they're what you call like indirect competitors. You like maybe, but what you have to do is think of like very direct competitors. So people who you see yourself selling alongside in like a boutique, things like that. So if you would look at what they're doing, they're really good places to start. So I'll say like, who do you see yourself sitting alongside? And then they'll put some names. And then I can go check them out and start getting a real feel for what it is they're looking to create, what kind of market they're looking to sell to. Are you looking to incorporate prints or graphics? I just ask like a few basic questions. And then what happens is I set up like normally like a free 20-minute introduction call just so we can meet each other. So we can build like that trust, that and we can just get to know each other a little bit.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, and then what I can do is after that, I'll have like a pretty good idea of what someone wants to do. From there on, it's like I work and consultation calls into the project because I think having this like one-on-one time is really important. So we go through all of the details of all the design, ask all the questions. Then I go and put the designs together. So I have like two kind of ways of working. One is where someone knows exactly what they want. They've got all the details really like clear. I can go away and put that together for them, do the sketches, and I put together the design boards. I send them to the client and say, happy with everything. If they are, I'm like, great. And if they might say, oh, can we just tweak this a little bit here and there? And then we can go to the tech pack when they're happy with everything. And then it's all finalized. Or the other way is some people know kind of what they want, but really want a bit of help pushing the project, doing what you call like design development. So I'll put together like a couple of options, maybe 2 to 3 options per design. And they can go, oh, actually, I really like this one the most. And that's really good because sometimes like they might like you said, design might not be your strong point, where it is mine. So they might just want that help to make sure they maybe not like copying a comment directly from something else, and you're bringing your own, and you bring like your own brand elements into it and we can like, talk a lot about what that is. And yeah, it's really good. So for instance, like if I do like 3 designs and maybe they're like, oh, actually, I really like the shape of this one, but I really like the sleeve on that one.
Yeah.
We can then combine those 2 designs to make a new design. And then that thing, when you're really happy with everything, I'll put together all of the final designs on the board so you can see them all together, colored in, and then we go to the tip pack from there. So yeah, it's like very risk averse, it's very like helping you really visualize what the final products will look like and as a range and how it will work together.
Yeah. It's almost like they have you on their team, but you're
Yeah,
just in the UK.
exactly. And I do like a consultation call as well once I've set up the design boards to talk through everything. And then once I've done the tech packs, we have another call to talk through the tech packs so you can ask any questions. If there's anything that you don't understand, we can go through that as well. And then I can also give tips on like the next steps and sampling because I think that's when I started, I didn't have as many consultation calls built in. And I used to try and keep the cost just as low as physically possible. But actually, I've learned over time that having this contact time is so important because it just means that, the everyone feels more confident on the next steps. You feel like you understand, you're learning, you're learning about more design. Like I said, it's not your strength. You bring someone else in whose strength it is, but also it's really important to pass on the knowledge while you're working with someone as much as possible.
Yeah, I love that because I feel like you said, you don't need to know how to do it, but you should have an understanding of how the process works for your whole
Yeah,
business. And so I love that you are not only, interpreting the ideas and the design, but you're also kind of educating and consulting and keeping this line of open communication so that brands can feel confident in, what they're producing and that you are going to articulate their vision really clearly.
exactly. And also, like another thing I'm able to do is work like extra calls in for talking about sustainability and creating more sustainable products. I know like people often have like tons of questions. So I'm always, I can always, I'm a total open book.
Yeah, that's so great because I feel like there's no reason in this day and age, and I think it's almost required to succeed in the fashion industry right now to incorporate sustainability in your brand somehow. So it's so important that you have that. And I think a lot of like designers or freelancers don't always keep that in mind. So the fact that you are, making sure to offer that and educate on that is so important too. And I'm curious, like, how would you say designers can keep sustainability in mind when developing their designs? So I know it's like not only about the fabrics that we're sourcing, but it starts off with the design itself. So how would you go about
Mhm.
that?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many things you could say around that. It's really interesting. I guess it's understanding that whatever we make has an impact no matter what. We're never going to have like a magical product that doesn't have an impact at all. So it's figuring out what impact you want that design to have. So I think sustainability and ethics are kind of like separate topics, but I think ethics, so making sure like all the products are produced humanely is probably like top priority because that's just should be like it should be a base level really. But it's not become
Right.
that in the industry. So I think it's always really important to make sure that that doesn't get left out in the sustainability conversation.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and then secondly, it's like I said, making sure that it's a well-designed product first. So working with a designer like is really good for that. It's making yeah, like it's going to be like I said, it's quality, like having all the finishes thought about, like that's super important. And then it's as well like when we thought about cutting down on the sampling process, that's really not just good for budget, but it's good for sustainability because it means it's going to be less waste fabric. etc. And so it's thinking about like how can you reduce the need for more materials at every step? Can you think in my tech packs I always put like use the most efficient lay plan when cutting fabric as possible for like minimal weight. But there's loads of incentives around now, like people who make stuff from scraps. So if you can send your scraps to people, for to do things with, maybe someone, or maybe you can put a call out saying, "Does anyone need this?" There's also in the UK, there's quite a few companies who like shred fabrics and make cool like things from those or paper or but yeah, it's really thinking about how to maximize on your all the materials that you do use rather than thinking no one would want this, and there's
Yeah.
nothing I can do with it and just putting it in the bin, which is what's done, in the past. And also I think there's so many things we could talk about here, but also like sustainability means different things to different people.
Right.
Um, so it's figuring out what is important to you because you can't solve every issue with a product, but maybe there's one particular issue you're very, very passionate about and basically figuring out how to work around that. For example, if you're this is like a controversial example, but it's a good
Uh-oh.
example. And I think there's a big topic around like people who are interested in vegan fashion, for example. And so figuring out as someone who is very passionate about veganism, what is the best product for people who want to buy into clothes that don't use any animal products. Um, so if that's your main goal, that's something you're really, passionate about. It's really good to not just build a product that solves that problem, but build a conversation around that
Mm,
product. So, create that again, like attracts your target customer and it builds almost like a community around what it is you're doing and bringing in people who are passionate about what you're passionate about. And there's so many things that could, you could do that. Like I know someone who creates products with a lot of female run artisanal groups because she's very passionate about female forward design, like investing in women's skills in India, for example. And it's not technically just purely environmental. Like I think it's too hard to separate all those things because often women are the people who care for the environment the most, and so then it's like it's bringing in like the bigger picture and the reason, not just the reason for like, oh, I want to be more sustainable because that's the way it's going. It's like the heart into why you are passionate about sustainability.
yeah, I think that's such a good perspective because I don't think that you can do anything well that you're not passionate about. So if something is, really dear to your heart, you're really gonna, I feel, push that really well and educate your customers on that really well, as opposed to just doing something because you're supposed to do it.
Yeah.
And I love your approach too, because it feels more doable, not to try to tackle everything. And I feel like brands feel a lot of pressure to tackle every area of sustainability or like not try it all because, there's a lot of people who are really critical about people's business practices if it doesn't feel really perfect or doesn't feel really holistic in the way that they're tackling it. But I think especially for newer brands that don't have the capacity to like hit all these points, just
Mhm.
starting somewhere and starting in an area that you feel really strongly about is such a healthy way to look at it.
Exactly. And like, yeah, there's no right or wrong answer when you're working from a place of real, really getting deep into something. And I think that's the thing. Like when people talk about sustainability, often we can spread the topic really quite thinly. So as smaller brands and as startup companies, I think the biggest impact we can have is by going deeper into one specific part
Mm,
rather than trying to like tick every single box. Because that will happen over time and you can add things in or you can address like topics, but I think as long as you can say like you say, like not just sustainability, but like purpose driven. If you can talk quite detailed about something and people can connect to that. I think that's the really interesting thing about purpose-driven fashion.
Yeah, I love that. So I like to ask people who are in the area of products, so whether it be product development or design or anything like that. In your opinion, what do you think makes a great product?
Yeah, so I feel like in a way, it's very simple. Like we can overcomplicate things, but actually, it's but what I've said like throughout the podcast is like if you have something that's designed to fill a purpose, whatever that purpose may be, and it's designed well and it's good quality and it's made to last, then that's a great product.
Actually, the last person I asked that question said the same thing about longevity. So I think we are seeing a common theme here.
And also there's this slow fashion, purpose-driven fashion, like more sustainable fashion. Then we've got more traditional fast fashion companies that still create like, good products. And they're not as
Yeah.
cheap as people think they are. Everyone's like, oh, but slow fashion's so expensive. But a lot of like these kind of mid-level fast fashion companies still have, good higher prices, but you're not getting the quality and the thought and the ethics per se in this other space. And then you have like the other companies who are just like ramping up the speed even more and turning the quality down even more and
Yeah.
creating the, really problematic part of the industry because they're just getting faster and faster and producing more and more. And then there's people in the middle, who originally like did quite good quality stuff and they were okay. They're like trying to keep up with, these bigger companies rather than actually being like, oh, let's stand our ground, let's keep the quality, and look to this side. And so they're these kind of like even faster than fast fashion, really rapid fashion brands are
Yeah.
really creating a lot of issues. And they're making it really hard for fast fashion companies to do better because they're like in competition with them, you know.
Yeah.
So our job is to stand very like firm and stand and really stand out for all of the right reasons and give people a real alternative to buying and give people like a reason to, yeah, maybe potentially spend a bit more than they might have originally done. But I like to think of it in like a cost per wear idea as well, because I have some clothes that I've worn hundreds of times, like no joke.
Same.
I've had them for years and years. So I think, oh, I'll use like my old pair of Doc Martens for example. I think I got them like when I was 21 and I wore them every day, like must have been, I think, for like 8 years.
Oh my
So when
gosh.
and they were like about maybe like they were 150 pounds. I actually got them in America on holiday. So yeah, maybe they were like $180. But then if you think of the amount of times I've worn them, you're like, they've become like, almost like a cost per wear. I feel like they're
It's like,
almost like in negative equity now. They're like,
yeah,
okay.
they're free. They were
Yeah.
free. That's
Literally, because
hilarious.
the shoes I would have bought to replace them normally because they didn't last as long would have, cost me more than that over time.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think like we need to do a better job too as brands of educating, the customer about these things because yeah, people they'll go and buy something that's, really affordable and it's like, okay, well, I'm getting a deal, so I'm saving money, but yeah, you're actually going to probably throw that product out quicker than you think and it's not going to have that same longevity. So I think again, the price can be shocking for some people when they're like, this sustainable product
Mhm.
seems so expensive. But I think, if it's something that you're going to wear all the time, it's like, this is so worth it because it's going to last. And the last person I interviewed who said that made a good point too in saying, like, price is not inclusive of longevity. So just because it costs a lot doesn't mean it's going to last long either. So I thought that was a good point to make too. And I'm curious now that I brought that up, like, how do we know? Like, how do we know if it's going to stand the test of time? Is there any indicators in the design that will tell us like, okay, this might this might
Mm.
last me a long time, or how can I trust this brand?
Well, it's a good question because I think there's two ways it can be designed. A product can be designed for longevity. So one is in the quality, so in the fabrics, in the fit that be included in that. Because say for instance, like if you get like a garment that's not great fitting, you're not going to wear it as much. Which is obviously a lot of like fast fashion clothing now to cut corners. Don't do as good fits as maybe before. So yeah, it's like the fabric fit. Those are like what you could say cause longevity in terms of quality. But also, I think it's really important to think of like longevity in terms of the styles itself. So,
Mhm.
you have some things that are designed to go out of fashion quite quickly. You have some things that are designed to be like very, very timeless. And so it doesn't have to be like, something extremely timeless to know that it will still last because it's as long as you can still like look at trends and design around trends. And as long as you're designing something that you can say in terms of the quality, in terms of the actual design itself and the style, that it's made to last. I think those two, like if you design things in that way, then you've got again a good product that's gonna last in terms of style, longevity, and quality, functionality, longevity.
Yeah.
I know, often even if you're buying clothes online, I think they provide really good photos and you'll be able to get like a good idea. Like a lot of company photos, you see them and they're like,
Yeah, trying to hide every detail of the garment. Yeah.
yeah, and they're like not actually showing what it looks like on the bottom. You can see every picture they've got their hand on their hip, like bringing it in. Now it's like, oh,
Yeah.
what's going on there? Like, why don't you just
Yeah.
show the garment?
Yes, which is why front, back, product shots that are
Yeah.
normal are so important. So, Lottie, what would you say for aspiring fashion entrepreneurs? You've given us so much wisdom already, but like, what would be a piece of an encouragement you would give to fashion entrepreneurs looking to start?
That's a good question again. Yeah. I think a lot of it is playing to your strengths. So I have a lot of friends who are business owners, and some of them are like amazing at organization. That's just
Mhm.
they can put like a spreadsheet together like no one's been there. So yeah.
Yes.
So like, is your strength like creating a really strong business plan? Or are you really good at marketing? I think like if you're starting a brand, you definitely need to feel like you have a thing that you're is going to make a part of the process easier. Whatever that part process is, maybe you're
Mhm.
really good at, connecting with people. Whatever that is, I think notice that and really big yourself up on that, and make sure you are playing to that strength because your strength will be other people's weaknesses and, vice versa. And so, yeah, I think it's a, it's a lot of mental work as well as learning. There's a lot of mindset around it. So I think it's very important to, yeah, if you're, if you know people as well, say for instance, my partner's like a photographer. So I'd be like, obviously, yeah. Could you help me? And ask for help from people who can give it.
Yeah.
If there's anyone who can give you some advice, and then yeah, and then the rest of the time it is like knowing that you will have to invest to grow a brand, and so invest in the right places where you feel like you can get the most from that investment, and yeah, and also like follow your instincts on who you work with because one thing when I say about working with a factory and working with manufacturers is like people can say, well, can you just give me a manufacturer that I can work with? And you go, no, not really. We can give you like an idea of what really good practices are. We can give you a few different people to reach out to. But what might be good for one person might not necessarily be good for another.
Mhm.
Maybe one factory has a really short communication style, whereas you might be the kind of person who needs a bit more of a friendly relationship with a person. So yeah, like as well, like try your best to make it an enjoyable process by working with people you really enjoy working with as well.
Yeah, so good. One more question for you. I forgot to ask this, and I think it's so important to know. So, for someone starting a brand, once again, and they want to work with you or a freelancer in general, how far in advance should they reach out? They maybe have a timeline to launch on a certain date. Like, what does that look like? Because I think sometimes, like, timelines are kind of underestimated when it comes to fashion, and like people have the idea and they want to
Hmm.
like launch as soon as
Hmm.
possible, right? So, like, what would
Exactly.
that look like?
So yeah, like I get that question a lot from brands, and I think I know a brand who, when they come to me and I say, "Oh, when are you looking to launch?" And if they say, for instance, it's spring, maybe it's like January of this year. If they say spring summer 2024, which is this year, I'm like, impossible. Yeah, no. And
That sounds great. Yes.
there's no nice way of saying it, but that's like quite like I know that in your, you like you say, you have an idea, you want it to come to life, but it's not realistic because, say, for instance, we need to work on the designs, you need to source the fabrics, you need to find a factory that you want to work with. They might, each one of those people might have their own lead times. So
Mhm.
the fabric suppliers might have 3 weeks lead time to send you the fabrics. And I think it's, the manufacturers might have like X amount of lead time. They might be quite busy. And for instance, for myself, I get a lot of people reaching out and say, I want to start as soon as possible. And obviously, as a freelancer, you want to work with people as soon as possible as well. But I might
Yeah.
have bookings a month in advance. So then I'd be like, okay, yeah, we can definitely start. My earliest availability is, next month, for example. So yeah,
Mhm.
in an ideal world, everything would be able to be done instantaneously, but there's a lot of pieces in the puzzle that need to work together. And to do that, we often, like, there just needs to be the patience of getting it done right, not rushing, because the rushing is like where we cut corners and then the pro doesn't end as well. Also, like time, overly like uh, press, time precious like projects. There's sometimes like where mistakes can be made, or people don't check things. So I think definitely as a starting brand, I think it is so important to give yourself time to fully understand the process that you're going through, to go through it without putting yourself under loads of pressure. And then by the time you come to launching, you won't be like completely stressed. You'll hopefully be like, you built in that spaciousness to make sure that everything's done right. So it's not even just from like service providers perspective being trying to like be unhelpful. I think it's really good for a new brand owner to understand that the more time they can give themselves, the better it will be for them too. But we say generally, if you're gonna put like a time on it, I say from having your designs finalized and tech packs, I'd say I'd want to give someone like a minimum of 6 months. And so if you don't have your designs, maybe you need to be thinking like a year in advance, which technically is like what fashion used to be like. You were always designing a year in advance. And a lot of people now, they look at what's going on and they see how quickly things are turned around and think that that is normal, and it's not. You know?
Yeah. I think especially because, we've kind of shifted where not as many brands are like selling wholesale and they're doing direct to consumer, and they're not using that traditional wholesale calendar. So they're like, maybe producing in drops or like, have new collections come out every month or whatever it may look like. But I think that's a good rule of thumb too, 6 months to a year. And then
Mhm.
depending on, what your plan is, how you plan to sell it and distribute your brand and all of that. And I know that's kind of shocking to some people because they wanna hurry up, but I promise you, like, if you try to launch too quick, you're gonna start cutting corners and you're not gonna be happy with the collection you produce because you're just rushing things. And, if you were to want to start selling to retailers or whatever it may be, I think it's so much harder to pivot later than just
Mhm.
starting off in a, like,
Yeah.
healthy schedule, right?
Yeah. And as a new brand, it's really, say for instance, like if you've got your suppliers, right, I'm reordering fabric that I really like. I've got my supply. I've got my factory. Once you've already built that relationship with them with your first, range of designs, it will the process will speed up over time. It will never be like, crazy fast. You always have to plan ahead,
Yes.
but it it can speed up from that. It's just, I'd say, like on your first round, give yourself more time than less.
Yes, that's such good advice. Oh my gosh, I could talk to you about for like 10 hours about this topic. There's so much to unpack, and I'm so excited because, you have taught an amazing lesson on sustainable design and tech packs in our Make Good Fashion Academy that's launching next month. So if anybody's looking for more, you can tap into that. But
Yeah.
also, what if people just want to contact you directly and reach out and start working with you? How can they find you?
So on Instagram, I am Lottie Woods Design. So that's Lottie spelled like Lottie. And then my email, which anyone is more than welcome to get in touch to my email, is hello@LottieWoodsDesign. And then, yeah, my website is LottieWoodsDesign.com.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Lottie. It's been amazing talking to you and getting your perspective on design, sustainability, and all the things. So thank you so much for being here.
Oh, it's been awesome. I've loved it. Like, yeah, this is my favorite topic.
We will see you next time.
Amazing. Bye.
Bye.